Terry, no more nipple pictures. I do not find
What?
I do not find you that attractive.
What?
I'm sorry. It's just not my thing.
Well, if I send you more, you'll change your mind. I
No,
just
no.
know that it's true.
Hairy nipples are not my deal, man. Just not my deal.
Hairy nipples.
Hairy nipples.
Ooh, boy. There you go. Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
You can
I'm
braid
sending
those
this to you.
puppies. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 516 of the Dead Robot Society.
Where we drop the F-bomb.
Where we drop the F-bomb, and I'm about to. Joining me today is my irascible co-host, Terry Mixon. Say hello to everybody, Terry.
Hello, everybody, Terry.
Now shut up, Terry.
Yeah, shut up, Terry.
Oh, it's been a weird day, folks. It's been a weird episode. It's been a weird day in general.
I'm on codeine. I had a root canal. So.
Yeah, he's got an excuse. I don't have one other than I'm me. So we'll go with that. So Terry, what the hell is up with you, man?
Well, like I said, I had a root canal yesterday, so I'm obviously a little bit off of my game today.
You'll be a dentist.
God, you couldn't pay me enough money to be a dentist.
Sorry, I was making a joke about the Little Shop of Horrors. Anyway. That notwithstanding. Have you never seen that?
It's been years, many years.
No, Steve Martin's got the whole dentist routine. That's the song they sing when he's talking about he's torturing flies and everything else. They're like, you'll be a dentist. Anyway, I digress. What's going on besides root canals?
A couple of days ago, I wrapped up my part of the next Glenn collaboration novel. So my part of that is done. I'm about to start writing a short story for the next omnibus for the Empire. What else? And then I kick off the next Empire book right before I go to Vegas in 2 weeks.
And you're going to be watching a bunch of shows and strippers in Vegas, right?
I'm pretty sure my wife's not going to want to, watch a bunch of strippers.
I got no response to that. What are you going to be doing in Vegas is what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, yeah, I totally missed that. No, I'm going to a writers conference.
What kind of writers conference?
The 20 books to 50K writers conference that they have in Vegas every year. 750 indie authors congregating together to talk about what we do best, write books and how to actually do stuff.
Now, see, I think that you're going to miss a very vital component of this con.
You?
No, the drinking.
There's probably going to be a ton of drinking.
I have never been to a con with writers where there wasn't a lot of drinking.
Sadly, I cannot partake.
Yes, I know. That's what I meant.
But that's okay. I'll watch everybody else.
So I expect we're going to get a report once you get back from this little DVD.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm hoping to have a nice list of people to come onto the show and talk about various things.
Yay!
Then my co-host can stop bitching at me because I'm falling down on my booking job.
I would never say something like that. I would never complain that the booker is not booking.
Never took you for a yes man.
Oh, that's cold. So is that all you have to report?
Let's see. The audiobook for Freedom Express is in the final stages of getting the last takes done and should be submitted to Audible in a couple of weeks, I'd imagine. So sometime next month it'll come out.
Sometime next month, that would be good.
Well, I say sometime next month. Audible being Audible, it might actually drag out to the beginning of December. Who knows how this thing works?
Yeah. Let's see. In our experience, my experience anyway, I've gone from 3 days to 3 weeks, depending on what book it is. And it's never consistent. It just depends. It's like, oh, we trust Paul E. Cooley. No, we don't trust Paul E. Cooley. I don't know why that is, but there's always a difference there. So
let's see. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm finalizing getting my Patreon page, getting it set up and getting it live, and I'll get that done before I go to the conference at the beginning of November because I've printed the address for it on my book on my cards. So I kind of need to get it out. Too late
to bow out now, buddy.
That's a way of commitment right there.
Yeah, I printed 500 business cards. I guess that link better go somewhere.
That's right. It's all done though. The only thing I have left to do is to record the audio, and I've actually written the script out for it. Tried to get it down to about a minute. We'll see how that works out for me.
Yeah, all right. I'll be more than happy to tell you how much it sucks.
Well, I have no doubt. What do you think, Paul? It sucks.
It sucks. Change this. You know what? Can I change a few things here? Like what? The words?
And maybe get, like hire an actor to play you because you suck too.
Yeah. I've often thought about that, but it's me. It's too late.
You could have like a paid spokes author.
A paid spokes author.
Mm-hmm.
We joked about me writing gay erotica and having one of my friends who is gay actually be the author. So he would be the one to show up to all the book signings and everything else.
You don't even have to do that. You already get away with writing your stuff under your Chuck Tingle pseudonym. So why not?
Chuck Tingle. If I was Chuck Tingle, I'd have a much better house.
And better taste in furniture.
Oh, yeah, definitely better taste in furniture. Well, for me, I am finally on the last 10,000 words of evolution, maybe the last 5,000. I'm not really sure yet. Depends. The scene is going on longer than I thought it would. It was supposed
Everyone dies.
It was just supposed to be a couple of red shirts, and now it's turned into something much more interesting and terrifying. I really enjoyed the hell out of it.
Excellent.
So yeah, I'm finishing that up. I'm going to have a lot of work to do to go back and fix some things. A lot of subplots I need to drop. So this book may end up only being 90,000 words by the time I cut out all the crap. And there's going to be a lot of crap to cut.
How many words are you at now? What are you talking on cutting word wise?
Well, I think if I've got everything together pre-cut, sounds like we're bringing in a Moyle joke again. Pre-cut, it was about pre-first cut that I've already made. It was at 96,000. I think now it's to 88.
Oh, that's not too bad.
I know I've got to cut probably another 4,000 or 5,000 words, and I got to go back. But I say that I am going to actually have to add a scene or two at the beginning.
I was thinking you were like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to chop out 20,000 words." I'm like,
no. Been there, done that. Not doing that this time. So I'm gonna have to go back and work on that in November. That's going to be November's going to be very busy.
So considering you're doing Nano, I think it will be.
Yeah, I'm stupid. I'm doing Nano. Doing Nano for the book that kind of came to me a while back. I think I've talked about it on the show before, but it should be a short one and should fit into that month. So I've been doing research on American Sign Language and deaf community and all this other kind of stuff to get ready for it. So I'm already getting the ideas for scenes that are going to happen, and I'm kind of excited about it because I'm entering into a culture that I have absolutely no knowledge of.
You could go ahead and write a serial killer that's deaf, and the messages he leaves for the police are nothing but a video recording of his hands doing sign language.
Why do you try and penetrate my brain? Well, that sounded wrong. Why do you try?
That's kinky.
Why do you try and fill my brain with this garbage?
Because sometimes it's not garbage.
It's always garbage. It's always garbage. Nothing ever good comes out of brainstorming episodes.
Yeah, that's true. We should totally have another one.
Yeah, we need to. We've been threatening we need to do it. So other than that, I blurbed an anthology for David Wood. I think I came up with a pretty good blurb for it. He was happy. So what's it called? Hellhole? Yeah, perfect.
Is that the anthology about the succubus?
No, that's the one about subterranean horror. It's all horror that takes place underground.
Completely missed my joke there.
I think I did. That's okay.
What's the title?
Hellhole.
Succubus.
Never mind. Terry, you just love the idea of watching me at the computer cursing at 9 p.m. while I'm trying to fucking edit this shit. Ugh.
I think you just found your bumper.
I think you yeah. I'm going to stop talking now. Other than that, Garrison Inferno is selling on audio. Audiobook sales are up. That's a wonderful thing. And if any of you helped out with that, thank you. And the YouTube thing is starting to work.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. I have gotten several folks messaging me about the fact that they didn't know about the series until they found Outbreak, and then they're going back and, going back to the first episode. And then there are people who are just basically like, I have to give you money for this.
Awesome.
So maybe over time it's going to actually build into something, but I have to get over 1,000 subscribers before I can actually have revenue from it. So we'll see. I'm a long way away from 1,000 subscribers. YouTube.com/Paul E. Cooley. That would help. Or YouTube.com/DRS podcast. Subscribe or be destroyed. Anyway, other than that, not a whole lot. Just basically prepping and getting characters down and going back to Archivos and getting a little bit of an outline done. That's about it. Won't be significant, but I have to have something I'm going to have a skeletal framework to work with if I'm going to try and get this book done in a month. This has got to happen. So I'm prepping.
Yeah.
I am prepping.
You better prep ahead of time, because by the time you start writing, it's too late.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing the research now and reading these books that I'm reading. So I'm trying to spend at least an hour and a half a day doing research for the new book. And that's about what it's going to take, because I don't know anything about sign language, really. So I'm learning, though. I might be able to say my name by the time the book is out. I might be able to say hi.
Learn all the curse words.
Oh, yeah. Curse gestures. I don't even know if that's right. Anyway, so if you happen to know sign language, or you are, whether you're deaf with a big D or little d, I would love to hear from you.
What is the difference between deaf with a big D or a little d?
According to the cultural research I did, there is very little difference, and there is a huge difference. It depends on who you're conversing with. Big D is people who are born deaf at birth. Little d is people who are deaf because of hearing loss.
It's sad that even communities like that will differentiate based on that and have their cliques. That's unfortunate.
It sort of makes sense, though. Sort of. So I'm not going to take issue with it. It's just a simple, I think I understand the difference, because the difference is I used to be able to hear, and I know what sound sounds like. I know what sound is, versus I have never heard anything. Because they're two different, they really are two different experiences. From the reading I've been doing anyway. Very big.
I seriously hope that it's not a discriminatory type of separation.
I from what I've seen, I'm sure there's some militant folks out there. There always are. But from what I've seen, it's not. It's not that. It's culturally, it's not it's not like an us and them kind of thing. Or you're not deaf because you were, born with hearing. I don't think that's the way it works. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Anyway, that notwithstanding, see this kind of conversation, this is the kinds of things that I'm learning about between big D, little d, and all this other stuff. So it's been interesting. It's been really interesting to walk into that and try and parse it as somebody who's not familiar with any side of it. So it's been fun. It's been scary. We'll see how many people I piss off with wrong things in the book.
Your book title should be Wrong Think.
Wrong Think. Yeah, there we go. I do not know how to segue into this episode.
Well, sometimes you just got to jump right to the end.
Sometimes. So we did the swampy middle. We did the first word. Where are we now?
The last
word. So now Terry and I are going to tell you how to screw up your endings.
And trust us when we say that we really have some experience there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still screwing up endings, and will probably continue to do so for the rest of my career. So without further ado, let's see what kind of drivel we said about endings. We've done the swampy middle. We did the first word. So obviously now it's time for the end.
No, now is time when we go ahead and drag the novel out as long as we possibly can and then meander on to a close.
Okay, well, that would be part of the discussion of the last word.
Or we miss the ending and just keep meandering on past when we should have stopped.
Oh, Paul's series, the Derelict Saga. See that for example. Yeah.
I didn't say that.
I did. I did. I admit it freely. Endings. How the hell do we get to endings, Terry? How do you get there?
Word by word, sentence by sentence.
That's not very helpful. That's not even very descriptive. That's bullshit is what that is.
Oh, I've been called out. All
you
right.
have been called out. Give me rhyme and reason, Bubba. How do we get to these?
The first thing you have to know when you get to an ending is that it actually is the ending. Because it's hard to get somewhere where you don't have it in mind.
Several of my readers would say I've yet to do an ending.
You've got to realize what the actual climax of the story is to give the reader whatever emotional satisfaction you're intending to give them. In romance, that's the love interest and the happy ending. In horror, it's the horrific ending and the big reveal that screws up everybody for life or kills them all, whatever it is.
That's
whatever genre you're in.
Horror.
Whatever genre you are, each one has its own set of possible endings that are satisfying to the reader. You've got to find something satisfying to the reader, because if you get to where you've stopped writing and you've left so much stuff hanging in the air that the reader is unsatisfied, that's not the end. You have managed to somehow miss the end, just like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where you fly by throwing yourself at the ground and missing.
Yes.
So you've got to know what an ending actually is to find it.
I was just thinking in my head, the nursery rhyme. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and
Jill came tumbling after.
Something like that. I can't remember the last line. Anyway.
Something along those lines.
Cut the last of it. So Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Where's the end? Is the end fetch the pail of water?
What goes up must come down. That is the end. What goes up
must come down. Yes, there we go. There we go. The swampy middle tends to be a plateau, and if you do it right, if you follow the academic plot lines, whatever, it's going to look like a bunch of sharp parabolas. It's going to look like mountain peaks, but they're not going to be as high falls as they are ups. When you get to the end, you usually have that huge spike, like you said, the big reveal, and then everything else is tapering off. So, what is that? Is that when you conclude all the major plot lines? Is that when all the main quests are done, the side quests are still hanging out there, either completed or incompleted or abandoned? What is this ending? Is this ending when these people come back to Earth from whatever story they're in?
For me, I can speak to the stories that I write. The ending is where I have gotten them into trouble. The trouble has peaked. Things have blown up in their faces, and they've salvaged what they could. Usually it's pretty good. Usually they will come out on top of the situation, and things they've dealt with the critical problems that they have to deal with, and the enemy is vanquished. For now.
The enemy is vanquished. You know, your world is so binary.
It is.
It's so binary.
It totally is, and I'm happy with that.
I need to send you an Assemblage 23 song. Oh, God, it's so hopeless. Anyway, man, it's really difficult to figure that out. I think when I write, I usually have the ending in mind. I have some scene, some image, some climactic event that is part of that chokes off the majority of the plot. And that part, that last third or quarter or eighth of the book, whatever it turns out to be, is the final ramp up of the tension from the swampy middle, where everything's going up. I mean, everything is going up. There may be some little peaks here and there, but by and large, you're just going straight up. and you're taking everything with you. And then when you get to the top, there's no more up. That's when you have found the ending, when it's all over, except if somebody doesn't make that one thing happen, everybody dies or horrible things happen. And that's that point where I know that I've got the climax.
Let me go ahead and talk about the first book in the Empire Bone Saga. When I started writing it, I knew what I wanted to have the Empire, the old Empire, be, what had happened to it, what was waiting for the characters. And I knew that Princess Kelsey was going to have what happened to her change her life forever. And that was going to be the climax of that book. Then I started writing the book and went in search of the connecting events that would get me to where I wanted to go, because I had no idea what that meant. As a discovery writer, I didn't know how to get to the end other than write scene after scene and see where the story took me. And as I got to the end of the story, it was easy to write the things that went wrong because people make decisions. And just like try-fail cycles, they are their own worst enemy, and they'll do something that makes things so much worse than they possibly could have been. And the ending is when you find the so much worse part and either cement that in place or redeem. That's the ending.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking about the Strain trilogy, the books. In the last, oh God, I don't know, 10,000 words of the final book in the trilogy.
Did the vampires win?
I'm not saying
Please,
shit.
I want the vampires to have won. After having read the first book in that, I so was rooting for the vampires.
Oh my God. Anyway, that one notwithstanding, we're going to leave Terry out of this. There were these developed subplots in book 2 and book 3 that kind of carried over the beginning of book 3 anyway. Well, most of them were set up in book 1. We just didn't know it or realize it. But anyway, all these subplots crash into one another. And then you see everybody fight their nemesis. Everybody takes out their nemesis for the secondary characters. And then the main character goes into what we always knew was going to have to happen, the final battle. Okay, we always knew it was going to happen. We just didn't know how. So what did they do? Chuck and Guillermo decided to make it so that these secondary characters, they needed to stay out of that battle. They wanted to basically give the villain, their nemesis, their comeuppance. And that's how it worked. But each of those characters had their own end as well. One of them dies in the process of doing something else. And it's perfect. It actually fits with the character. It makes you a little misty-eyed for a minute, but at the same time, that's the way that character wanted to go out, fighting and screaming. So it was very satisfying because we got to see all those characters wrap those pieces up. Nobody got away scot-free. The villains were either horribly scarred or dead. And the characters, if they're not dead, they're horribly scarred too, but they got out of it. And they all took care of business.
That is the key to a good ending. You have to resolve something.
Yeah.
If you don't resolve whatever the problem is, whether for good or for ill, if you just leave it hanging out there, then you have failed to find the ending. And some people resolve something and then don't stop writing. And I'm not referring to you here. But
I'm just going to go ahead and raise my hand for all the examples of how not to do something. I'm just going to keep raising my hand.
Imagine wrapping up the strain and then going on for another 10,000 words talking about how the world had changed afterward.
Oh God. So that was the other thing, the afterword, which I guess should be part of this discussion, epilogue, whatever. It was done gracefully. It was done in 3, 4, or 5,000 words. But when you're on a 3-novel cycle where you've already read more than 1,100 pages, 3,000 words you're going to need, for the end of a book, for the last, the epilogue. So that's okay. But yeah, I don't need I'm looking at you, L. Ron Hubbard. I don't need a
That's
100
this entire book.
a
The
100
entire book.
the last 200 pages of Battlefield Earth are almost nothing other than the government, the politics, the economy, how they structure the world after they get done with the beasties. That's all it is. And it's boring as shit. It's not even written well.
The middle of that book, I seem to remember having problems with that as well. But I did
that book is actually a train wreck.
I have read Battlefield Earth. It was
I haven't read it since I was 13.
Time ago. It's a paperback book that is literally this thick.
It's huge. It's huge. It's absolutely massive.
One of the problems, I think, is that for the end of the book, let me be clear. When you wrap up a book, how you signal to the reader that things are over is you have the big final resolve of the conflict. Then you have a time break, no matter how short or how long, and then you show the results thereof briefly.
Yeah, briefly
you
is the
settle
trick.
things out. You get the characters settled in and show how things have changed for their lives briefly. If you drag that on for 10,000 words, you have passed the ending.
You have passed the ending and started another story.
No, I'd say you haven't started another story.
You're saying you still have something to do with this story.
I'm saying that you didn't realize you actually finished.
Ah, okay. Okay. Fair enough. That's actually a... let me ask this. Do you have a specific example in mind of a bad ending?
No, I do not.
I have been struggling, well, besides Battlefield Earth.
I can give you a bad ending, but it's not that kind of bad ending.
Yeah, that's a book that never found the end of itself. It really didn't. It really should have been two different books.
I've told the story before about some unnamed science fiction book that I read when I was a kid that involved a guy going from world to world looking for the answer to the question of why we were born to suffer through life and then die. But every time the ship jumps, a star is extinguished. And by the time the book is over, his final jump extinguishes the last star in the universe, and he finds the person that can answer the question, and the answer is why not? Yeah. That is not resolving the story.
that is a troll.
That is a troll. Because you have just wasted all your time reading that book to get to the ending that isn't an ending.
Yeah.
That's a bad ending. That's a bad ending.
That's ripping apart the reader's expectations. That's absolutely not meeting any of them.
There is a mystery book that I read as well that the character, it's a first-person story. The detective is hunting for the murderer. And at the end of the book, it's revealed that the person hunting for the murderer is in fact the murderer. And wasn't like they forgot it. It was just never mentioned. It was never brought up. That was an unsatisfying story as well, because it's unbelievable that someone would try to solve a mystery and you're inside their head hearing their thoughts and nothing would ever cross their mind of, yeah, I killed him. What?
That's the bait and switch. That's the Scooby-Doo ending.
Yeah, you can sometimes do that sort of thing if you're writing in third person and you're distant from the person. But if you're actually residing in the point of view's head, it's impossible. Because
you can't lie.
You can't lie. You can't. When you are first person inside the person's head, you can be unreliable, but you cannot misrepresent.
Yeah, you can't absolutely lie to the reader unless you're going to try and do something where the character is lying to themselves, but you have to be very skilled to make that work. Very skilled.
At the end of this mystery, the character was not lying to themselves. Right. It was just suddenly revealed, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah. There would have to be a lot of hints. You see,
I think they got to the end of this and the writer just decided they want to pull a fast one.
Maybe
this will be clever if I do this.
Or they just got bored. The what would be an interesting mystery to write would be, and it's kind of a Columbo thing, I guess.
I've just got this one question.
Shut up. is the character, you're actually writing from the character's point of view, the murderer, whatever, hiding all the stuff. Hiding all the stuff from the investigators, doing what they need to do. I think that's part of what made Columbo so fun, besides his personality, was the fact that you knew and you saw everything the character did when they were committing their murder. And you had the chance to find their slip up. But the moment he brought your attention to it, you're like, oh, yeah, you're screwed. So, and then of course the villain was like on the cusp of getting away with it. And then there's one tiny detail they forgot to account for. That makes a really interesting story because you have a character under a lot of stress and tension. Making them likable, that's part of the problem. But that notwithstanding, if a case doesn't end, the case doesn't end.
Sometimes a book, or a mystery anyway, ends in failure.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes you fail to find the person that did it. Sometimes you know who did it, you can't prove it.
Yeah, but those are all endings.
That is acceptable because there is a resolution. It doesn't have to be a happy ending. It just has to resolve the problem that you presented the character with.
Right. I mean, think of the X-Files. Most of that series is about not knowing 100%, or the characters not knowing 100% what they went through, even if the viewer does.
The truth, it's out there.
Yeah, truth is out there, and they're still looking for it half the time because they can't prove what happened to them 100% either way, and therefore it's entirely possible that whatever paranormal supernatural thing happened actually did happen. But that is a series that is a great example of how to do that. So is Millennium, where there may not be it may not be a satisfying answer.
That's sort of something, the way you said that spawned me of thinking of an idea for a story where you write it out, where the character is doing whatever they do in their real life, and they come across something that doesn't match their memories. Something significant doesn't match their memories. And it starts them off down a trail of realizing that something has been changing their memories and concealing things from either them or society or whoever as they go along. And as they go, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Have you read or seen Paycheck?
I've seen it sounds vaguely familiar.
It's got guys always in and out of alcohol rehab. Fuck.
That's just about every actor ever.
No, hangs out with Matt Damon. What's the guy's name?
Oh, you're talking the guy that played Batman, Affleck?
Affleck, thank you. Affleck. Forgot where I was going with this. Anyway, Ben Affleck plays in the movie. It's about a character who's an engineer, and what they do is basically whatever thing he was deconstructing, they wipe his memories at the end of it. So he doesn't remember who he worked for. He doesn't remember what he did. Ever. It's all ripped. And he doesn't want to know. He walks off with his paycheck and he's done. Well, this particular story, things are not what they should be. So instead of getting the money, he gets a key.
Ooh, awkward.
He traded away all his money for the key.
And he has no idea what the key is for.
And he has no idea what the key is for.
Yeah, that's a good story.
So it's a very fun way of doing it where the character is trying to discover, they already know who they are, but they don't know what's happened. They don't know where they've been. They have to discover it. And then of course you add the people who are trying to kill them. And yeah, you've got a great thriller. Bing, bang, boom. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
See, that's the thing about an ending. Whatever problem you introduce in the beginning, whether it's a thriller, a mystery, a romance, you have to resolve it. That's the key to finding the ending, is knowing how to resolve it. You have to look at the situation. If you're a murder mystery, you've got to solve who did it. You've got to know who did it at the end. Most times they'll get some justice out of it. Sometimes the criminal will end up dead. Sometimes they'll get away scot-free, but you know who did it. In a romance, the guy will get the girl. The girl will get the guy. The guy will get the guy. Whatever kind of romance you're writing. If you're writing a triangle romance, everybody could get everybody else. That's all fine and good too. But you've got to know, based on the genre that you're writing in, what constitutes a resolution for the type of story that you're doing. Because you can't have a thriller resolving for a murder mystery. It just doesn't work. The pacing is wrong. Does that make any sense?
I think we're splitting hairs, but okay.
Well, let's just say you can't have like a thriller ending for a romance. You've got to know what your audience sees as satisfactory.
I'm thinking a Bird on a Wire.
There are always exceptions.
It's a thriller romance.
There are always exceptions to the rule.
But
don't be the guy that tries to make them happen.
What I'm saying is, if you are writing a romance where that is the key element of it, yes, you can have the thriller ending, but if you don't tie up the romantic part during that, then you have failed.
Well, you can have a thriller ending, but you better have elements of a thriller at the beginning of it too.
Yes. Yeah, there has to be consistency.
Whatever you start, you have to actually finish that.
Right.
You can't switch midstream and turn a romance into a thriller.
And this also leads to the problem where you realize that there was something about the book you just were not able to resolve in that story.
Sometimes you'll get to the end and realize that you've got to go back and rewrite the first half of the novel because you left out something pretty damn important to the ending.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes you realize that, okay, this conflict that I created, there's parts of it that these people can't solve. But we can get them out of harm's way. We can take them through the meat grinder, and then we can put their remains out, what's left of them out on the table, and move on to another story. Maybe we grab them back into it to resolve those kinds of things.
Earthcore, anyone?
Oh, shut up. Oh, that was just a rewrite. Well, I mean,
I haven't read the rewrite. I don't know.
You should.
I've only read the original.
You should. Oh, I mean, that's a seminal Scott Sigler work. I mean, if you haven't read Scott Sigler, folks, go pick up Earthcore, go read it.
What's the one where he has the people doing the research on deadly viral stuff? Ancestor. That's a good one.
It's a really good one.
I'm not that kind of guy. That's not my kind of story. And both of those were horror, and I enjoyed the hell out of them.
I don't call them horror. I don't think either of them are horror.
What do you call them?
They're thrillers. Now, they have a lot of horror elements to them, but they are not horror in and of themselves.
That's an important distinction to make. And that actually dovetails with what I was just trying to say is you've got to know what kind of story you're telling in order to tell it effectively.
Yeah. And there's ways, like I would never try and end a romance the way I ended Closet Treats. One of the main characters is kind of out of action. Not going to have a romance in that way. Well, that's not true.
You're not going to have a sexual relationship, but you could have a romance.
This is true. See, we keep contradicting ourselves. There's ways to do these things, but there's ways to do them completely free.
You've got to have the same story in mind when you start, when you write in the middle, when you write the end, because you've got to be true to it. That's the key to finding a good ending, is to be true to the characters in the story.
And there's, there can be some problems with consistency, you find. And that may mean you have to go back and rework some things at the beginning of the book, depending on whether you think sometimes you'll be in the swampy middle and you realize that, oh, wait, I've been doing this wrong. This is actually the way to go with this. And then you got to go back and figure out what to cut and chop, because the story will seem like it was written by two different people. Because suddenly it's like, all right, this is where the story took off for the author. Too bad we had to get half the goddamn way, through the book before we found it.
That's every novel I've ever written.
I disagree.
Literally, as a writer, when I look back at most of my stuff, as a discovery writer, I write into the mushy middle and I'm going one direction, and then I see the end, and it's like, squirrel! And off I go towards the end. As a writer, I could see it. I could see it clearly and remember clearly getting partway through and having that visualization of the end and changing the shape of everything and head towards it. It may not be obvious to the people reading it, but I could see it.
That happened during Derelict with Marines. Marines was just supposed to be a shoot 'em up. It was supposed to be one book. And then halfway through it, I realized, oh, wait. No, I want to do something bigger with this. But that's what happened. And I hope it was consistent with the other two books. I don't know, because I'm obviously too close to it to know. But the thing is, during that, the ending moved. The ending moved significantly. And the ending is still moving. Although I think I figured out what it was last night. No.
12 books. A decology. Is that it? No, that's 10 books.
That's 10 books.
I'm not sure how many 12 books is. A dozenology? I have no idea what the appropriate word is for that.
Baker's dozen. Just go for 13. If we're going to go for 12, go for 13. It's a nice odd number. No.
Go for a gross.
Gross. No. So there is a point where, you kind of have to figure out if you're going to go that direction. That kind of goes where we were talking about the swampy middle. But the ending, as it were, I guess we kind of been talking about endings in the way they're basically like the last quarter of the book, last third of the quarter of the book. You're talking about where you're out of the swampy middle. Everybody knows what they're doing. Go. And however long that takes for it to happen. But that's the part where I think some people actually start the story in their heads. The ending has to wrap this shit up.
You got to actually conclude something. Commit, now, damn it, commit.
That may not mean one book. I mean, but at the end of a series, something has to be concluded somewhere.
It sounds like you were talking about that with the vampire books you were talking about.
Yeah, The Strain, yeah.
The Strain, well, I've only read the first book, so I can't actually comment on the other two.
1 and 2, almost no time passes.
It sounds like you could treat book 1 as the beginning of a story, book 2 as the middle, and book 3 as the conclusion. It's like
Correct.
It's like a huge story.
Yes.
Split into chunks. And if you do that, that's a challenge in and of itself, as you well know.
Yeah, as I well know. So basically the first 2 books are telling one arc, but they're 2 mini arcs inside a major arc. And then the third book takes place 2 years later.
Subplots, baby.
But it wraps up there. And yes, and all these subplots were generated in the first book.
I need to make a note. We need to talk about subplots.
Yeah, we do need to talk about subplots. That'll be next on our back to basics conversational bullshit.
Bullshit. That's, you've just summarized our entire method of giving out writing knowledge. Bullshit.
Now, I will
Don't take yourself too serious, folks. That's how you can survive in life, is don't think you know everything. Just talk about it and learn.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're doing here. You'll notice how many times we've contradicted ourselves. It's because you know what you're saying, but you're not saying it right because there's not a right way to say it.
It's because I'm a discovery talker too. I start talking. I'm literally being honest here. I'll get an idea of something to say, and I'll start talking about it. And part way into it, I'll realize that my thinking on it has already evolved. Yeah. And I've got to change what the hell I'm saying.
Yeah. And it's funny because this is a topic I've been thinking about. And for a long time, this is a topic that I've been thinking about because it's shit I struggle with. It's shit I do struggle with. I want to leave the possibility to be with these characters again.
And good luck after all the ones you've murdered, you bastard.
And that means that you have to set up certain things and you have to leave characters in certain way stations. And it's okay to leave them there. It will piss some people off, but there are ways to leave them in way stations where I might pick this back up. But this story has been resolved. That character's situation may have changed in a way that you don't like, but the story itself has been resolved.
Do you know how many secondary characters I've left parked in 9 books?
Yeah. And see, this is what I'm talking about. We park people all the damn time. I have people walking in and out the urban fantasy stuff I write, Garaga, Tony Downs, whatnot. Garrus Inferno, Closet Treats, Tattoo, all these books share common characters that walk in and out all the time, but we don't really get a sense of who they are or what the hell it is that they're doing. But we're going to keep running into them until I'm ready to tell their particular stories or let you in on their lives.
It's basically like Stan Lee appearing in every Marvel movie.
Right. Except these guys, usually these folks get consulted on whatever story is going on, if it's mystery or detective, or they'll walk through for a reason. There's something in the story that attracted them in there, and I need them there for a certain reason. But they float through there, and then we park them because they're non-essential to the story, but maybe I need to set something up for another book. So I need them to do something useful and to walk through there at the same time. I'm playing the long game here with those kinds of stories because I know what I'm ultimately trying to do with them, which I'm not even going to talk about. But I have to set these things up. They're not part of the ending, usually. Although Tony Downs does appear at the end of Closet Treats. But for reasons that we'll hopefully find out in 2019. So did I mention I'm playing the long game?
I believe you did.
Yeah. So you can have those kind of subplots hanging off at the end and leave them unresolved. They're there. They were never meant necessarily to be resolved. The characters fulfill whatever they were supposed to do, and they kind of walked out of the story and they're gone. And wherever you're leaving these other characters, they may have the opportunity to interact with those folks again.
It's like the gunslinger walking into your life and back out again.
Yeah. It goes on to the next town, right? But maybe you end up seeing that character again, or that person again, when you go to 3 towns over. Or maybe you make the mistake of following the gunslinger.
That is always a mistake.
There's bad ideas, and then there's really bad ideas.
I can't remember what story it was, but the blurb still sticks with me. That this one guy who stayed in a small town because he just couldn't bear to leave because he was waiting for the return of somebody like that, who drove like some weird car, wore a tricorn revolutionary hat, and was like obviously this weird time traveler with all of this anachronistic stuff hooped about them, bringing trouble along with them.
Still waiting for this person.
Well, the book is, of course, when that person arrives. Then hell arrives with them.
Of course. Hey, I was pissing off some demons. I need a place to hide out. Is this dimension okay?
I haven't read the book, but I suspect it's something very much like that, but maybe with time travel and dimensional travel as well.
Yeah, Paul's next book that he needs to write. Hey, I kind of made a mistake in this other dimension. Can I hide out in this one for a while?
Yeah, I'd rather not talk about Dimension X. Sometimes things don't work out quite the way I want.
Quite the way we think they should.
Let's just say I won't be vacationing there again anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly. Something about a hotel bill and a drink. I don't know. Maybe I shagged the overlord's wife. Who knows?
I read a news article herring off onto into the side here again about a British couple that went to this out of the way bar in some place and ended up buying it because they were drunk.
Whoops.
Apparently they did okay, but it took a couple of years and a lot of money to turn it around. Never buy a bar when you're drunk.
Never buy anything when you're drunk, except more drinks. No, don't do that either. Except for an Uber ride. There, you can buy that. Uber or Lyft. Have a good time. Or a taxi. Or, your friend who's not drunk. Why am I doing public service announcements? Anyway.
You should do a public service announcement.
Oh, I'm actually going to. I may actually have you do the intro.
Okay.
Get your voice on there. And now for a public service announcement from Paul E. Cooley. That's all I need. And then we'll close it. Thank you for listening. It'll be good.
Please write responsibly.
God, I wish I had more skills. A video editor, was much more talented and had access to the equipment, because I would do some really crazy shit and post it on YouTube. It'd just be so damn fun.
Green screen that bitch.
Yeah, green screen that shit. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So endings.
You mean what we're trying to find in this episode?
What we're trying to find in this episode is an epilogue and ending.
No.
What is an epilogue?
An epilogue is, see if I remember the right word, it's a denouement.
Denouement.
It's where you take and put the finishing touch. That's what an epilogue is to take the harsh reality the climax, the raw emotions of it, whatever you're doing, and to smooth it out and to just settle it down so that the reader can leave emotionally balanced for whatever type of genre you're writing and walk away.
The care and feeding of readers.
Seriously, that's a lot of what writing skill is learning the care and feeding of readers.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, the climax is in most of my stories is the, you know, apocalyptic showdown, whatever it is.
You can't just walk away from that.
No, there has to be consequences. There have to be consequences.
Think about, let's pick a movie that everybody would have seen. Just for not everybody. The original Star Wars movie.
Okay.
If you stopped when they blew up the Death Star, it would feel abrupt.
How pissed would you be?
It would be so abrupt. You'll be like, wait, what? What? This is where we stop? What happens next?
Yeah.
You've got to leave it so the readers aren't asking in an angry voice what happens next. It's okay for them to ask what happens next in the series, but you can't leave them at the end of a novel going, this isn't the end. And if you don't have a denouement at the end of this to smooth everything out after you blow up the Death Star, then you haven't actually finished the story.
Yeah. Star Wars, realistically, I will get lots of hate mail for this, but realistically, Lucas could never have picked up another movie in that franchise and it would have been okay.
Yes.
It would have been okay because
That's a complete story.
It did everything it needed to do. And then if he wanted to, go back to those characters like he did, then suddenly blah, blah, blah. But if Star Wars had been a flop, you still would have walked away and you enjoyed it anyway, and they weren't going to make any more of them. It's still a complete story. And it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
For the people that didn't like the Gunslinger, the Dark Tower movie that came out a couple of years back, it was a complete story.
It was, yes.
It may not have been the story you wanted to see.
But it was a complete story. They took the original book, which was actually written in two different timelines, and they decided to do the first timeline first. It's a complete story. The sequel would never have to be made, but it will be made to be true to the book. But it wouldn't have to be.
Have you ever accidentally written something that is not a complete story?
Absolutely. And there was no accidentally about it.
I did. I went long and I changed course towards the ending and didn't make it there. So I've actually published a book that for me did not succeed. And it's the lowest ranking of the books in that series for a reason.
Right.
And I recovered afterwards. I recovered with the next book. And here's the thing about failures. They don't end you. You've just got to pick yourself back up and learn from it. Say, okay, I did that wrong. I'll do better next time.
Yeah.
And then figure out how to do it.
Derelict is my huge mea culpa, my massively huge mea culpa. And for whatever reasons, I don't give a shit what people say. The bottom line is there was something I could not resolve in one book. And it took 3 books to resolve just one thing. And I still have a shitload of other things to resolve. So it's gotta keep going because I set these things up. I need to close them down. So yeah, I ended Marines in a bad place. I ended Tomb in a bad place. I ended Destruction where this first arc should have stopped in the first place. So yeah, I'm bad. And to be honest, I don't think the series has ever recovered from the second book, and it's fine. It's still making money and people enjoy it. And I enjoy writing it. So, we'll go until I get this damn thing done. So that's the way things go. But again, in hindsight, would have done this differently.
That's one thing you learn. When you write book 12, you're not the same guy that wrote book 1.
Well, it's always funny because I think when I finish a book 1, I don't know. It's just so much of the stuff wants to keep going and you want to do different things like, something with the black. It was just so much fun to try and take it where it needed to go for these other tales.
Well, I'm actually referring to first book ever.
Oh, first book ever.
As opposed to 12th book that you've written.
Yes.
You
Time.
become a little more seasoned as you write. And human beings are wired to learn from mistakes. They don't learn from the things they did right. They learn from the things they did wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of wrong.
There's a lot of wrong.
Every book, I try something different and experiment with something, because it's the only way I'm going to get better at my craft is to try something new. Oftentimes that new thing fails. When it succeeds, though, oh, it's so goddamn good. But you have to be willing to take a risk on some things and try them. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then you'll know better next time. But that doesn't mean you should try and do something gimmicky. I'm just talking about trying to do something different. Bring something different in. And then, yes, people are going to see the progression of your work. You read Closet Treats or Tattoo now and compare it to the kind of writing I do in The Black and Derelict, I bet they're probably unrecognizable to one another, because my style has changed, my experience has changed, and my skill has changed. So
as you do more endings, you'll become more adept at seeing where the endings are. One of the things about being a writer is that we're really all readers if you scratch the surface. So we know, our subconscious knows how to end a story. We just have to trust ourselves.
yeah, you have to let yourself in the story. Sometimes it's hard, though, because you're wondering what the reader is going to think about where you left things. And that might be a clue to you that you fucked up. Maybe.
If you're satisfied with the ending, your readers probably will be too. If you're not satisfied, well, maybe that's a different issue.
Look, when you have a reader come up to you at a con and say, "You gave me the blue balls with this book," and
you
then we're
tease,
yeah, pretty much, and then we're talking about Closet Treats, and I was like, "Oh," and I've heard that before. People are like, "You left all these people in these places, and we don't know what happened to them. We want to know what happened to them." Okay, fine. I was satisfied with where they are. I was okay with it. What's your problem?
That's because inside you know where they ended up. The readers can't know that.
That's true. That's true. But I mean, that's one of the tricky things about it is if you're writing a single book, no series, nothing, ignore Terry for a minute. You write a standalone book. If it's intended to be standalone, it has to be complete. It just has got to be complete. It has got to have that denouement. It has got to have that conflict. It has got to have the resolution. It just has to.
It's really critical in a standalone.
You just have to do it. You have to find the end. If you can't find the end, then you have to decide whether or not that book or the story that you were writing is really the story you were writing. And sometimes you'll find out it's not. And that's happened to me more than once. This is not the book I intended to write.
If you find yourself getting toward where you think the end of the story should be, but you're flailing around and you still don't see it, maybe it's time to ask somebody else.
Yeah, that was the other thing. It may be time to get somebody else to take a look.
Not a writer, a reader.
Yeah, please, not a writer.
You can find somebody that likes the genre that you're dealing with and ask them to take a look. And as a reader, they can tell you what did work for them and what didn't work for them. You don't listen to what their idea of a solution is. You just listen to where the problem is, and then you figure out the solution. Because it's your story. You've got to figure out the bits and pieces.
At the end of the day, you're the one that has to make the decision. You have to make the decision as to what you want to do with that tale. And not everybody's going to like what you do with it. That's just something you got to get used to.
Just look at any of the big writers. You'll see that they've got plenty of 1 stars.
Yeah, you will, especially if they decide to write something different from their normal genre. Because, people want something. Why don't you write something new? Oh, we hate that. We wanted something new that's more like what you normally write.
We wanted something new that's actually just like what you've already written.
Right. Please don't do that again.
It's like the hate that Nora Roberts is getting because she wrote the last book that was not a romance novel. It had romantic elements. It had a mystery in it, but it wasn't a romance novel. And right. I was satisfied with it. I went into it thinking it was a romance novel, but I realized fairly quickly, well, maybe halfway through the book, I was like, this isn't actually a romance novel because you have to actually bring the two people together if you're going to have a romance. Instead, they danced around each other in the timeline. I was like, this is a mystery novel. That's what this is.
With lots of sexual tension.
You have to actually have the main characters meet for there to be sexual tension.
Oh, well, this is true. Romantic tension?
They hadn't met. They did not know one another.
They did not meet at all.
They
all right, never mind.
literally did not meet until more than halfway through the book.
Yeah, that might be a problem.
So
that might be a problem.
For a romance, you got to kind of bring them together pretty damn fast, to start that tension going there. So by the middle of the book, I was going, okay, we're dealing with something that's completely different here. This is a mystery novel. And I was fine with that. Some people weren't. The 1 stars then proceeded.
Oh God. It's tough. I mean, we kind of went over that in the Swampy Middle episode, but there are often times where I realize that what I thought I was writing is not what I'm writing. And that changes things, not necessarily for good or ill. It just changes things. It means that maybe the characters and the ending that you had in mind, you pushed the goalposts further out, or you have this idea for a complication that changes the entire flavor of the book. And sometimes it's the right way to go. And yeah, suddenly you're writing a completely different book.
There have been times where you're halfway through the novel and you have a Keanu Reeves moment where you realize everything has changed and you go, whoa.
Whoa. Didn't I just see that cat?
That's where George Carlin is at the end of your book and goes, he gets better.
They get better. Right. It is a complicated, horrible mess. But if you're writing in a certain genre, go look at one of your favorite books. How did it end? How did they put it together? Preferably not in a series. That's a different animal. But if you're trying to figure out how to end a story, go look at something that you liked and tear it apart. What did the author do?
If you're going to read something that you like to tear apart, read first for pleasure and then go back and look at the parts you enjoyed and say, what did they do there that elicited that particular feeling from me?
Right. That's why I watch a lot of really bad B horror movies.
Is it really?
Seriously, because I want to see. I watch them and I go, wow, that was a piece of shit. But there's this one part that caught my eye in the midst of this insanity that really hit me, and so I will go back and I will look at that. It's why I often watch my favorite movies over again, because I go in there and I throw away the expectations, just let the movie happen. It is what it is. Then I will go back if it's something I enjoyed and see why I enjoyed it. That's
how we learn as writers.
Yeah, that's the critical part. And that's what I do with reading too. So I always give something the once over, take a look at it, enjoy it as much as possible. And then if I liked it or I thought something was cool, I'll go back and see how the author put that together.
I've always been a big fan of Nora Roberts' style of writing characters, of how she does dialogue, how she does things like that. So there's been a number of times I've went back after I've read a book of hers and enjoyed it and just picked out selected parts and said, how does she do this dialogue thing? How is this all put together? I'm never going to be as good at dialogue as she is, but I can become better at dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I had the snappiness of Jim Butcher. If I could put, Dresden in there, I wish I had a character that lively in my head and that inventive with language and worldview. Maybe I'll get there someday, but the bottom line is that's what I'm shooting for, is to reach that kind of comfort. And I'll probably never get there because I'm really not that witty. Jim Butcher is very witty.
Here's the thing, man.
I can be better.
You can be better, but we can't judge ourselves as writers. We can never judge the quality of our own story, because what we think is great, the readers will think is shit. What we think is just mediocre, the readers will love. You can't judge your own art. Somebody else has to judge it for you.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we deal with 1-star reviews. Somebody else was very judgy. Somebody was very judgy.
I don't read reviews, and neither should you.
We've been wandering around looking for an ending. I think I found it. If you have something to add to this discussion at emails or want to yell and complain about something that we said, you can send a note to show@debrobotsociety.com. You can tweet me at Paul_E_Cooley. Or you can, what else can you do? Oh, yeah. You can join that crazy listeners of the Dev Robot Society Facebook group. I got it right this time, Terry.
You did.
Where all the crazy and nuttiness happens. And we have a ton of people there now. With NaNoWriMo quickly approaching, I imagine it's going to be a support group pretty soon.
It's going to be a group therapy.
Yeah, pretty much. You can find our ugly mugs at youtube.com/DRS podcast. You can, of course, visit our website, DevRobotsSociety.com. We have to thank Podhoster for making all 10 bazillion episodes of the Dev Robot Society available for your ear holes. And if you would like to support us in this insanity, help us pay hosting costs and keep the show on the air, you can become a Patreon patron, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to exclusive content, live shows, and etc. And if you're at the $10 level, you get your name read.
Maybe you can, have a video of Paul doing glad hands.
Nobody wants to see Paul doing glad hands. Don't you mean jazz hands? Not glad hands.
Yeah, that's what it is. Jazz hands.
All right. I want to see David Wood make a meme right now with Terry doing glad hands, whatever the hell those are.
Whatever the hell that is.
Now it's time for the $10 patrons.
Keep it clean now. Keep it clean.
Oh, whatever. Sue, I'm too old for this shit. Bayman, JD Barker, Nathan, Leon Fair, dude, no, something Village Petty. I don't know what that is. It sounds like it may be Welsh. I'm not even going to try. Corley Davison, Kelson Deal, excited executioner exercising his excising power excess. Bite me. Isabel, I forgot to change this way too long. Oops, cushy. Isabel, get on the stick. Rick, trying to figure out the voice of my aliens. Rick, I told you, call me. Shaw. Lisa Slack, Sandy Manpants, Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Drew Ben to Brown, Barry's Bengals Bernardi, Chris Winder, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Handley.
Thanks for supporting us, guys. We deeply appreciate it.
Yes, thank you to all of our patrons for helping this madness continue. Terry, it was fun meandering around the wilderness with you.
I'm glad we found an ending.
So am I, even though it was kind of abrupt, but screw Dana Moss. It's this show. It never ends. So we will, and on that note, we will see you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.